They thought they had destroyed him. They took his father's house, the lands, the money, everything. But they forgot one thing. The quietest brother always watches. And when he strikes back, he strikes hard. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please do well to hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Ethan Morgan was the youngest of 3 brothers in a wealthy Midwestern family. His father, Richard Morgan, had built an empire in real estate, farmland, and local businesses. People in their small town often said the Morgans were untouchable, respected, envied, and sometimes feared. Ethan, unlike his older brothers, was quiet. He studied finance in Boston, lived modestly, and didn't parade around town like his siblings, Adam and Luke. Richard always admired Ethan's discipline and honesty, but Adam and Luke dismissed him as a soft one, the bookworm who'd never survive in the cutthroat world of business. When Richard Morgan passed away unexpectedly, the family gathered for a little reading. Everyone expected a storm. Richard had been a careful man, and he had divided his estate equally among his 3 sons. Ethan felt a weight lift, at least in death. His father had been fair, but Adam and Luke were not satisfied. They wanted control, all of it. They whispered to lawyers, signed papers Ethan had never seen, and moved quickly while grief blinded everyone else. Weeks later, Ethan discovered the betrayal. His brothers had forged his signature on key documents, transferring the family's prime land and even Richard's mansion into their names. Shock turned to anger when he confronted them. Adam smirked. "You've never been tough enough for this, Ethan. Stick to your books. Leave the business to men who know how to handle it." Luke added coldly, "Go back to your little city apartment. This is bigger than you." The words stung deeper than any knife. They weren't just brothers. They were predators, and they had stolen everything their father built. That night, Ethan sat alone in his tiny apartment, staring at the faded family photos on his wall. He wasn't just mourning his father anymore. He was mourning the bond he thought he had with his brothers. Still, Ethan wasn't the type to beg. He didn't scream or fight recklessly. He quietly told himself one thing: they think I'm weak. But weakness is a perfect disguise. And from that moment, Ethan began to plan. Ethan's life unraveled faster than he ever imagined. The Morgan mansion, the house where he grew up, was locked to him. He drove out there one morning with a spare key, but the locks had been changed. Adam's car was in the driveway, music blasting and laughter echoing from the pool area. Luke had already moved his family into the guest wing. The brothers were living like kings in a castle that legally belonged to all 3 of them. At the county bank, Ethan got worse news. His accounts were frozen. "There's a court order linked to your family estate," the manager said cautiously. Ethan's jaw tightened as he realized his brothers had filed paperwork portraying him as unfit to manage finances, painting him as irresponsible. The whispers around town didn't help. Old neighbors shook their heads. The youngest Morgan boy, poor thing, heard he's unstable. Adam and Luke had spread the story well. Soon, Ethan was treated like an outcast, the black sheep who couldn't be trusted with money. With no access to family wealth, Ethan rented a rundown apartment above a noisy diner. His meals were often instant noodles or leftover sandwiches. Meanwhile, his brothers flaunted new cars, expensive watches, and flashy business deals in glossy magazines. Still, Ethan kept quiet. The pain cut deep, but every insult, every betrayal, every humiliation became fuel. Late at night, he pulled out his father's old briefcase, the one Richard always carried to meetings. Inside were contracts, land deeds, and company records. Ethan studied them like a detective piecing together a crime. His father had trusted him with knowledge. He understood the value of assets, the structure of deals, and the importance of paper trails. Ethan began keeping his own secret files. He tracked every illegal transfer, every forged signature, every shady deal his brothers signed. He followed their trail of arrogance, companies they bought with stolen money, bribes they paid under the table, investors they duped. People thought Ethan had been destroyed. They were wrong. He wasn't broken. He was building. On a rainy night, staring at the city lights from his apartment window, Ethan whispered to himself, "They took everything from me, but they don't know me. I'm patient, and patience is more powerful than greed." And in that moment, the revenge truly began. For 2 long years, Ethan lived like a ghost. He didn't attend family events. He didn't show up in society photos. He didn't respond to the few friends who asked if he was okay. Outwardly, it looked like Adam and Luke had won completely. But behind closed doors, Ethan was moving like a chess master. By day, he worked quietly for a small financial firm, taking low pay but gaining something more valuable, access to people, records, and industry secrets. By night, he studied. He built networks, called old professors, and reconnected with investors who had once trusted his father. He discovered something his brothers never cared to learn: how money truly worked at the highest levels. Every week, Ethan added to a growing folder: copies of fraudulent contracts, proof of forged deeds, records of hidden accounts. He knew his brothers thought they were untouchable, but Ethan understood a simple truth: no man is untouchable if you follow the paper trail. The more he learned, the angrier he became. But he also grew colder, sharper. Revenge wasn't about shouting or fighting in the streets. It was about timing. It was about making your enemy collapse under the weight of his own sins. One night, while reviewing documents, Ethan stumbled upon a smoking gun. Proof that Adam and Luke had laundered money through a shell company in Chicago, using his forged signature to guarantee the deals. If exposed, it wouldn't just ruin them. It could land them in prison. Ethan smiled for the first time in years. The pieces were aligning. He reached out to a trusted contact, a government auditor named Grace Miller. Grace had known his father and despised corruption. Together, they mapped out a quiet plan, one that would destroy Adam and Luke from the inside without Ethan ever lifting a hand in public. The war had begun, and Adam and Luke didn't even know they were already losing. The first strike came quietly, like a ripple in a calm lake. One Monday morning, Adam and Luke woke up to headlines splashed across financial blogs: Morgan Brothers under federal review for fraudulent transfers. It was just a whisper, a rumor, but it spread fast. Investors panicked. Their phones rang nonstop. "Is it true?" one partner demanded. "What's this about forged documents?" another asked. Luke tried to laugh it off. Baseless gossip. People are jealous of us. But deep inside, panic bubbled. Days later, federal agents froze several of their accounts. Suddenly, bills couldn't be paid. Employees worried about their jobs. Reporters began circling the Morgan mansion like vultures. Ethan didn't celebrate. He stayed calm, working at his desk like nothing was happening. But every evening, he watched the news with quiet satisfaction. His brothers had built their empire on stolen bricks, and now it was crumbling. The government audit spread wider than even Ethan imagined. Grace Miller, the auditor, uncovered years of fraudulent transactions, shell companies, forged deeds, tax evasion. Every path led back to Adam and Luke. By the end of the month, Adam's flashy new condo in Chicago was seized. Luke's luxury car sat impounded in a government lot. Their once loyal friends stopped answering calls. Even their wives looked at them differently, sensing the empire was built on sand. One night, as rain poured down, Adam showed up at Ethan's apartment. He looked nothing like the arrogant brother who once mocked him. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Ethan, please," Adam said, voice shaking. You've always been the smart one. You understand these things. Help us fix this. We'll make it right. Ethan studied him in silence. For years, Adam had called him weak, useless, irrelevant. Now, he was begging at his door. Finally, Ethan spoke. You told me to leave the business to men who know how to handle it. So handle it. Then he closed the door in his brother's face. Inside, Ethan leaned against the wall, heart pounding. For the first time, he felt the sweetness of justice. The collapse was only beginning. The trial drew national attention. The Morgan brothers, once hailed as a pride of the Midwest, now stood in court as defendants in a fraud case that could put them behind bars for decades. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Adam and Luke tried to walk tall, but their shoulders sagged under the weight of shame. Ethan didn't testify publicly. He didn't need the spotlight. His evidence spoke for him. Documents, recordings, contracts, all showing how his brother stole from their own blood. The court was merciless. Guilty. The judge declared on multiple counts. Fines were massive. Properties were stripped. Some assets went back to the rightful heir, Ethan. Others were seized by the government. When the verdict came, Ethan sat quietly in the back of the courtroom. He didn't clap or smile. He just exhaled deeply, like a man who had carried a mountain on his back and finally set it down. Adam and Luke turned toward him as they were led away in handcuffs. Their eyes were filled with regret, fear, and disbelief. Ethan met their gaze without a word. For once, the silence was his weapon. In the months that followed, Ethan took control of what was left of the Morgan estate. He didn't flaunt it. He didn't buy flashy cars or throw parties. Instead, he restored his father's businesses with integrity, treating employees with fairness. Investors returned, not because of greed, but because they trusted Ethan's honesty. At a charity gala, people whispered again, but this time differently. That's Ethan Morgan, Richard's youngest. He saved the family name. He's nothing like his brothers. He's better. Ethan walked through the crowd quietly, dressed in a simple black suit. He didn't need attention. He already had the only victory that mattered: respect. One crisp autumn evening, Ethan stood at the gates of the Morgan mansion. The leaves crunched under his shoes as he walked up the familiar driveway. This was the same house his brothers once barred him from, the same place where they had laughed at him. Now it was his again, not through greed, but through patience and justice. He paused at the front door, memories flooding back. His father's voice, family dinners, laughter echoing through the halls. He whispered softly, "Dad, I kept your legacy. They tried to bury me, but I remember what you taught me. Character is wealth." Inside, the house was quiet, peaceful. He didn't throw a party to celebrate. He didn't invite cameras. He simply sat in his father's old leather chair, staring at the fire. They stole my inheritance, he thought, but what they could never steal was my destiny. And in that moment, Ethan finally smiled. Not a bitter smile, not one of arrogance, just a quiet, victorious smile. The last laugh was his. They thought they stole his future, but in the end, their greed destroyed them. Ethan didn't just win back his inheritance. He proved that destiny can never be stolen, and that was his last laugh. If this story kept you watching till the end, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one.